Well, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, good evening, perhaps, wherever you're from, wherever you are might be at this point in time, wherever location you are in the world, and whatever time it may be when you catch this information. So I'm glad you're here today. Welcome to today's Soul Formation. Glad to have you all with me today. Today, I want to talk to you about potential factors that are limiting your ability to grow, limiting your ability as a evolving soul on Earth. What is limiting your potential? Okay, so to start out with this, I want to tell you that Tiffany and I, we live in the Ozarks and the Ozark Mountains, the very northeast corner of Oklahoma. And one of the things that we enjoy doing is sitting outside on our front porch. We have the best view in the entire community, hands down, of the mountains. The house we live in was specifically built in a on a mountaintop so it can overlook all these huge rolling mountains, just layers and layers and layers, and goes back. And we sit back there at times. We sit on our porch and we enjoy this view. And occasionally we'll walk around on our land where there is it's just dense with trees. The minute you start walking back into this area, the trees are so dense that it starts becoming quite dark. Even in the middle of the day, on a bright sunny day, it can become very dark back in there because of the intense amount of shade. And when we go through our land, when we're walking through this dense forest land of Ozark Mountains, we see trees that are growing beside each other, very densely packed at times. Um, some trees are larger than others, but some are, a bit smaller. And I noticed that when I walk around and I look at these trees, there are some that are massive. There are trees that are absolutely huge that just, have been growing there for years, coming out of the forest. And nearby, there's other ones that uh, are not that big. The ones that are the same kind, the same type of tree, in the same soil, same environment, same climate. Okay. But some of these trees are quite a bit smaller. And we've lived here enough time to see the forests grow. We've seen trees grow. We've seen all kinds of things happen. Um, and yet these smaller trees continue to remain smaller. And as we observe this, as we notice this, it became obvious that the one different factor that was preventing these smaller trees from growing was the amount of sunlight they had. The amount of sunlight they were exposed to was greatly limited from these other trees around them. Because they don't get a constant supply of sunlight, they are only a fraction of the size of some of these larger trees, even though they're the same kind. They are the same type and the same soil and the same environment, same climate, same area, but yet they weren't able to express their full potential. They stay small. So I want you to take a moment to examine things in your life that could be potentially limiting your potential. And there are numerous factors that easily limit our potential to fulfill our destiny, fulfill ourselves, to grow to that full max capacity. And many times we don't know what these things are. Many times we're living in the shade. We're living in the shade, so to speak, like this smaller tree, of what we learned, about ourselves, what we learned when we were very little, at a very young age. Sometimes that shade exposes itself to us as what someone told us about ourselves when we were very little. Told us we couldn't do something, that we weren't that we won't amount to anything, perhaps, that we aren't that talented, we aren't that smart, that we don't deserve it, perhaps, whatever it might be. And the things that we hear when we're real little act as the shade on those smaller trees. This creates that shade and it limits us. It really shows itself through later on in our life as adults, through intimidation, through fear, through not trusting the source, not trusting in God, being afraid of all the things that could go wrong instead of focusing on the things that could go right. That's what we tend to do when we have this shade over us. Do you have family members or friends that are limiting your potential? Do you have a spouse, perhaps? Do you have a neighbor, perhaps? Do you have a brother, somebody that in your family that every time you want to say something, they just kind of block it. They kind of act as that shade. They kind of rob your potential. They stifle your growth. Does that happen? It happens to a lot of us. And sometimes these people, without us even knowing it, without us even being aware of it, they hold us back from moving forward towards our destiny, towards our desires. Think about this for a moment. What could happen to us if we were to remove ourselves from that limiting shade, that shade, if we could just step out of it? How could you completely begin to maybe flourish, grow, start to take the steps towards your potential if you if you took time, if you took efforts, if you took steps to change your surroundings? Now, the key to understand here is that the ability to flourish and grow and reach your potential is deep inside of you. It's deep inside of you. And you have time to develop into your soul's full potential. You still have time. Everyone here right now, regardless of where you're at, regardless of where you may be in life, you have time to reach your full soul's potential. And it might take courage. It might take guts. It might require you to do something really uncomfortable. Maybe uproot yourself and remove yourself from out of that shade. If you eliminate your potential blocks, keeping that sunshine from shining on you, nourishing you, providing you what you need, providing you the influence to grow, you'll actually begin to flourish yourself. You will begin to grow. You, just like those trees I described, will likely grow to new heights. You'll grow to new heights, new potentials, new capabilities. I know people who are always down on themselves. So the shade can come another way too. I know people who are always down on themselves because of regret of past mistakes, regret of things they did before or things they didn't do. And it's like every time we are around these people, every time we see these people, every time we speak to them, they share more and more stories of the past, how they messed up, you know, how things didn't go their way, how they blew the opportunities they had, how they didn't, take that step when they should have. It's like they tend to focus on everything that went wrong. And when you're so focused on your past mistakes, okay, it will contaminate your future. It'll absolutely hijack your ability to move ahead. When you focus on past mistakes, it will contaminate your future, no doubt. One thing my mentor taught me is to never let your current or your past results control your future. Never let your current circumstances or your past circumstances control your future. And I had a patient share with me yesterday. He read my book, and or he's in the process of reading it, and he goes, "Man, did you have a wild life? Did you have a wild, beginning?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, of course." And there's a good chance that, like many of my family members, I could have carried all that stuff on. I could have had those stories going in my head. I could have said to myself, "It's not going to work. Why bother? I don't deserve it. I'm not, I don't love myself. The world's cruel. Knowing my luck, the dang thing will never work." I could have said all that. I've had those stories before. When Tiffany and I met, I was convinced I was a loser. Put it away. I was convinced I was a loser. And I actually told her that sometimes. When we got to know each other, I told her that all the time. Uh, Despite me being, a fit former decorated Marine who had, went through and passed becoming a doctor, I was still deep down feeling like a loser. And I expressed that. I'd say that all the time to myself. Now that thought is so far past me. I don't even like saying it right now, you know. I don't even like saying those words. Before it was native to me. Before it was so familiar. Before it was just natural for me to say those things. It was natural, just as natural as breathing. And maybe that shade around you is natural too. Um, but don't let those past contaminations poison your future. I didn't. You don't have to either. Those things can show up as guilt, shame, fear, fear of making a decision, fear of, fear of making certain choices. All of those things that are holding you back, fears of making a decision. How many people cannot make a decision? They want to, and then the fear talks them out of it. They want to, and then I don't know if it'll work out for me. And it's their soul trying to emerge a decision coming from the heart saying, I have to do this. And then the brain kicks in and the brain lies. Don't get the brain, your brain will lie to you all the time. This is what I tell people, your conscious, lying, rational brain. If you followed me at all, if you've followed me through past presentations and things like that, you know this by now. Your brain lies. Your heart won't lie. But many people are stuck in the inability to make a simple decision because their brain and their heart are having a tug of war, so to speak. Okay. When this happened with me, I made a decision. I followed my heart, and my life has never been so blessed. And by the way, this potential, this ability to step out of the shade and grow and have the source nurture you and nourish you and allow you to grow is no more in me than it is in any of you. It's not like I have more of it than you do. We all have unlimited capacity to access this. And by nature, we're the same. By nature, we're all the same. We're all born into this world. We're all born into this society. Even if you're in wherever you may be in the part of the world you may be listening to this at, we're all born in some kind of civilization where contamination of humanity has touched us during those years of conception to 5. The only people that have not been touched by the contamination of human is the people that are tribal, hunter-gatherers, the small groups of people that are away from civilization, where parenting instincts are still strong from the heart, and they're not contaminated by the brain. They're not contaminated by these so-called experts today, these degreed experts who tell us how we should parent, the ones that tell us, let your kid cry it out, the ones who tell us, yeah, to be healthy, you need this, this, and this, and this, from the third leading cause of death in the world today, our healthcare system. We listen to these experts, and many of us still impulsively jump that gun because we're still under the shade. We're still under the shade. Maybe not all of us, but some of us. But make no mistake about it, that guilt, that shame, that past fear, okay, that will definitely stunt your growth, just like the shade does for those trees. Don't focus another moment of your energy on the things you've done wrong. Don't focus your energy, your intention, your thoughts, living in regret under the assumption that you have lived your best days, the best parts of your life are over. When you have this kind of mindset and you're constantly running this dialogue over and over and over inside of you, uh, you will live in harmony with the enemy. You'll live in harmony with the enemy when you run these assumptions that you've lived your best days, when when you're focusing on your mistakes, you're focusing on your past regrets, your guilts, your anger, your shame, your resentments. You're living in harmony with the enemy when you do that. The scripture calls the enemy the accuser of our brothers and sisters. Why? Well, simple. Because the enemy will always remind you of every shortcoming, every mistake, every falling, everything you've ever done wrong. The enemy will be sure to remind you of that over and over and over and over, even if it was years ago, even if it was decades ago. The enemy will be sure to remind you of those shortcomings. That's one of the most effective tools the enemy uses. That is one of the most effective tools that the enemy uses, is for you to go through life feeling bad about yourself, feeling inadequate, feeling that your shortcomings, feeling that you're not good enough, feeling wrong about who you are, wrong about yourself, not accepting yourself. That's one of the most clever, hideous tools that the enemy uses. And I say this is an effective tool because it limits your ability to live out your potential. It limits your ability to live out your potential. Now, I'm currently given this kind of, I share this story to a group right now. I'm sharing with functional medicine doctors the shortcoming of functional medicine doctors. What's missing from our ability to be healers as the natural approach is I share this story about a minister, um, because many of us as doctors, whether we know it or not, chiropractors, acupuncturists, naturopathic doctors, we aren't living our full potential. I mean, we're just as human as everyone else. And a lot of us have these shortcomings running in our own head. And again, it's the effective tool the enemy uses to limit our ability to live out our potential. And that story I'm referring to, I heard a minister once say a few lines that were absolutely incredible. He said the saddest thing when he is um, officiating at a funeral is not the death of the body, but it's the death of all the dreams the person had. It's the death of the dreams they took to the grave with them. It's the death of it's the house they wanted to build but never built. It's the dream car that they always wanted but never got. It's the vacation that they always wanted, they never took. The trip they wanted to go visit a certain country and they never went. The trip that you wanted to go around the world, you wanted to see a particular area of the world, you wanted to see a country and you never went. It's the business that you were going to start and build and never did. It's that relationship that you really wanted, but you settled for something less than, whatever it might be. That's the saddest thing that this minister points out. Not the death of the body, but it's the death of the dreams, the death of the dreams that people take with them. We have got to do what's inside of us for our soul to be fulfilled, for our soul to be nurtured, for us to pass, have a passing grade on what you could call trauma school earth. And that's really what earth is. You want to know, it's a trauma school for our spirits. You want a passing grade? You have to do what's inside of you. You have to get out of that shade. Let's not go to the grave with the dreams still inside of us. These are examples of how the enemy keeps you from reaching your potential. And what he is trying to do is limit your growth. He's trying to limit your potential. He will do his best to keep you in that shade. The enemy knows your potential. The enemy knows you were created to soar. You were created to just be limitless, be infinite, be potentially whatever it is that your soul is meant to do. You're meant to soar. And that's why he works diligently to make you feel guilty, to make you feel shameful, to make you have fear, to make you focus on your shortcomings, the past mistakes, all of those things, those whispers that we have, you know, you can't do it. You aren't smart enough. You failed again. You didn't spend enough time with your children. That one's mine, by the way. So we all have these little things now. The more I trust in the divine, the more I lean in God, the more I have check in with headquarters every single day, every single morning, every single evening when I'm going to bed. I'm constantly checking in to God saying, I can't do this without you. I can't do this without you. I'm checking in the headquarters. The more I do that, the fainter these whispers become and the weaker they become. And that's the whole meaning by give us this day our daily bread. It means checking in every single day, every moment, especially first thing in the morning before you're even fully awake and before you go to bed. That should be a necessity. And the little whispers that we hear, you can't do it, you're not smart enough, you failed again, you didn't live up to it, your best days are over, whatever it might be, you didn't spend enough time with your kids. Those are the whispers of the enemy. And there's always other reasons we could find to be down on ourselves. I mean, there's just a number of reasons. It takes you making the decision to step out of that shade, step up and say, not me. I'm no longer living under that shade. I told Tiffany this a long time ago without knowing what I was doing. There was a time years and years ago when her and I were living miserably. And I told her, we are not living another day like this. And her response, I'll never forget it. What are we going to do? Because she was living miserable too. I mean, as much as I'd like to be a provider at that time and be the man of the house, you can't give what you don't have. That's a big thing. You cannot give to others what you don't have. If there's any doctors listening to this, you can't give what you don't have. If you have turmoil, if you have chaos, if you have criticism, self-condemnation, doubt, worries, fears inside of you, and you're working with clients, I promise you, it's going to limit you. You're passing shade on to others without knowing it, without intention. You're not doing this purposely, but you can't give what you didn't have. And the minute she said, what are we going to do? I said, I don't know. I just said that we're done living like this. That was the day I pulled my first root out of that shade. I pulled my first root out. And now her and I are living our dreams. Her and I have both grown. It takes you stepping up and saying, I'm not living under that shade. I know I'm meant for more. I know I'm meant for more. The scripture says God's calling on your life is irrevocable. God's calling on your life is irrevocable. You see, infinite intelligence doesn't change its mind about you. God doesn't cancel your plans, doesn't cancel your destiny because you got off track. We need to remember that. God does not cancel your destiny because you get off track. He knows you're getting off track. I mean, God created you, right? People may have disqualified you, but it's not people who determine your destiny. God does, and he never disqualifies you. It's something you are around or something you're thinking or people you're around or habitual thought patterns limiting your potential is something keeping you from following your dreams. Fear, doubts, worries, standing up tall, walking with pride, feeling great about who you are. Okay. Things like shame, guilt, fear, and doubt. You must make the decision to come out from under the shade, from removing yourself from those potential blocks. Okay. It's not going to leave on its own. You have to make the move, just like I did. When you get aligned with divine, when you drop the baggage of humanity, the tasting of humanity, the negativity that humanity's influenced on you has nothing to do with God. It has to do with humanity, I can promise you. Any of these potential blocks, these feelings of shame, guilt, fear, and doubt that you may have and others, I promise you, it has nothing to do with divine, has nothing to do with God's grace. It has to do with you tasting humanity. I mean, we all have. Every one of us have tasted that. Okay. When you get aligned with divine and you can begin the process of dropping that old baggage, knowing God's grace and knowing God's mercy and living in God's grace and living in God's mercy, that's bigger than any of your past dwellings. That's far greater than any of your past mistakes. And when you really begin to understand that, you begin to blossom. You take steps out of that shade. New doors will begin to open. Unforeseen talent you've never knew about begins to come out of you. You will begin to accomplish dreams bigger than you ever thought. But you have to get out of that shade. For you to grow, you need to evaluate your friends. You need to evaluate the people around you. It could be the people that you sit with in the office. If you're at work, people you have lunch with, the people that are your neighborhood friends you hang out with, the ones you spend the weekends on, the ones you maybe go sit and watch a ball game with. Look around closely. Look at those people. Could be family members, could be it could be your brothers, could be your family members. Do they have the results that you desire in your do they have the results in their life that you want in your life? One of my mentors said this: never take advice from a relative. It'll be disastrous. Another mentor said, never take advice from anyone who is not winning in all categories, who's not achieving the level of results that you want. If they're not achieving the level of results you want, happiness, health, material wealth, you don't want to take advice from them. You just don't, because they're going to take you exactly where they're going, and they will gladly give it to you. Are these people making your life better? Are they pushing you to new heights, pushing you to reach higher? Are they pushing you and inspiring you to reach your dreams and reach your desires? Are they pushing you to be a better person? Or are they stifling your potential? Are they making you doubt yourself? Are they causing you to compromise and live mediocre and take the easy way out? Take the easy way out. You'll become more and more just like the people that you hang around. If you want to know what you're going to be like in 3 to 5 years, look at all the people around you. Look at the people you take advice from. The scripture even points this out. The scripture says, don't hang around angry people or you will become angry. It also says that when you walk with wise people, you will become wise. If you are around people who gossip, complain, who are just unpleasant, they're unpleased with life, maybe they're even unfaithful in relationships, that's one of the biggest red flags for me. I don't care how good you may be on the surface. If I ever hear that you're unfaithful in a relationship, I just won't be around you at all. Okay. Difficult to get along with. If you find people, if these are people around you that are having these kind of behavioral patterns, do yourself a huge favor. Find yourself new friends. Find yourself a new group of peers to hang around. And even if the peers are through social media, even if those peers are people that don't live next to you, I've had so many mentors that I've never met, mentors that through books and videos and podcasts and things like that I've learned so much from. Your mind actually will take on the characteristics of those people, even if they're not around you physically. There's a phenomenon called in-body and in-body cognitive, okay, a phenomenon, and it's very real. They have shown that, and there's a reason. If you could see my office, I have Batman paraphernalia all over my walls because I love Batman, right? They have shown through research that if you have a picture of somebody you admire, like a superhero, okay, next to you, staring at you, your performance actually jumps up. Your performance in doing things will actually jump up. If you have a picture of a superhero you admire observing you around you. Now, I say observing you because, to the subconscious mind, it's like somebody standing there watching you. To the deep down essence of who you really are, outside of just a picture on the wall, it almost makes you go, they're rooting for me. Yeah, they're going to make me do better. It'll actually increase your performance when you have pictures or paraphernalia of people that you admire around you. Okay. So you there's many things you can do. You don't have to just go out and find a new group of people in your town. Of course, that helps, but some people are limited to things. I certainly have been limited to that. But some of my greatest mentors are people that I never met. Some of my greatest mentors are people that I've met, but many of them, hundreds of mentors, are people that I never met. Some people died before I was ever born, but they were some of my most cherished teachers. Okay. So you have the choice. You can stifle your potential being around certain people, or you can become more and more like the people you admire, the people that you study from. So the scripture says, don't hang out with angry people or you'll become angry. If you walk with wise people, you will become wise. If you are around people who gossip, complain, unfaithful in relationships, difficult to get along with, these things are transferable. Okay. Spirits are transferable between people. Have you ever went to a busy shopping mall, like especially during the holidays when people are really stressed out? You walk into a Target or you walk into a Walmart or you go into a real busy mall and you're trying to eh, buy a, buy a gift for somebody, and you leave that store, you get back in your car and you just feel different. You don't feel the same. Yeah, you picked up something. Spirits are transferable between people. People can feel different. And sometimes when it comes to the concept of shifting and getting out of that comfort zone and pulling that root out and getting around new people and abandoning old people, sometimes people might lie to themselves. I don't want to upset them, Gabe. I don't want to upset them. What if they get mad at me? What if they, what if my friends get upset for me for wanting to avoid them or something else? That's not the question you should be asking. The question you should be asking, that I want you to ponder and take with you, is you should be asking yourself, what if they keep you from reaching your soul's destiny? What if they keep you from reaching your full potential? What if they keep you from growing and becoming the best version of yourself? Those are the questions that you want to ask yourself. So, hope everyone got something. Did everyone get something out of this today?
Very much so. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Thank you for joining me here, everyone, today, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you, Dr. Gabe. Have the best day, everyone.
You are welcome. Bye-bye, everyone.